Hello, I'm Shaun Munday, and you are watching for BassPlayersOnly.com.
Hi everyone, John Liebman here. You're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com. We're coming to you today on location from Rudy's Jazz Room in Nashville, Tennessee, with our friend Shaun Munday. Hey, Shaun.
Hey, John. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you. I have been watching more of your music and getting more familiar with you and what you do, and you are truly a unique performer and a unique musician.
That's a kind of word for weird.
That was your word, not mine.
Unique, yeah.
Unique, like okay. Weird was not anything close to what I was thinking, but boy, there's some amazing bass technique stuff that you do. You do double thumbing, and at the same time, you're like popping octaves or something, which is probably took a couple minutes worth of practice. Yeah. But I want to ask you, I want to lead up to all that. You are originally from somewhere in Missouri?
Yes, Southwest Missouri.
Southwest Missouri, and I'm interested, and I know the people here would be interested about your musical upbringing, your initial exposure to music. How did you become a bass player, and what were those early years like?
Well, the early days were probably like the earliest days you can have. As soon as I could hold a little thing, a ukulele or a toy thing, my parents put one in my hand. My dad's a musician, and my mother comes from musicians, and he was actually a bass player.
That's what I was going to ask you.
And then he gave this instrument to me, a smaller version, and encouraged me to play it, and I watched him. That's how I learned primarily, and listening to their albums, which is a lot of 70s and 80s music, and that's how it started.
What kind of music? Because I know a lot of your influences are very soul-tinged, like Donny Hathaway and people like that. So what kind of record collection did your parents have?
It was pretty diverse, especially for the pre-iTunes internet era. They had a lot of everything from the Eagles to like Nile Rodgers and that kind of Prince and all that kind of music, Loverboy. Pat Benatar. I remember all those albums being in those collections. I listened to those. A lot of Prince. I remember really liking Purple Rain that came out a couple years before I was born. So I used to play that a lot. I like Let's Go Crazy.
Sorry.
A lot. I used to jump around and to that song, I remember, and like Punch My Brother, because we were so fired up for this Prince music. But yeah.
I bet your parents had some videos of that, huh?
Oh, I think this was pre that too. Yeah, I don't think that. I think we got some what do you call it, like Polaroids or whatever, back when there was film and stuff. Not that long ago.
You mentioned Nile Rodgers, so does that mean Bernard Edwards got your attention?
Oh, everybody. I didn't know any of the names. Yeah, usually, and I didn't know that was a thing to look for. I just said, this is cool. I know Prince or anything. I just put the record on. I go, I like this. Yeah. And
well, once you got older and more familiar with music, did you must have had some bass influences, or maybe even some bass heroes?
My dad hipped me to Bela Fleck and the Flecktones, and Victor Wooten, and Marcus Miller. And I think all around the same time, Show of Hands came out, and Sun Don't Lie, Marcus Miller's album. So I just listened to those again and again. I have memories of sitting on the living room floor. Star Trek would be on, and watching or listening to those albums in the headphones. Yeah, and George Benson. Yeah, a lot of that. That was a good probably 5 or 6 years. That's all I listened to.
Okay, well, there must have been a point when you got serious with the bass and started practicing and knew what you wanted to do. I mean, I'm trying to connect the dots here.
Sometime next year, I'm gonna buckle down and get real serious about this and see where it goes.
Let me see if I can phrase it differently. How did your career get rolling from those early days sitting on the floor with a toy ukulele to playing with all the people that you've played with and doing all the stuff that you've done and are doing?
I just didn't know any better, so I just kept playing. And it's not a big town where I come from. There's not a whole lot of stuff to get into, but just kind of sit there and hang out and play. My brother plays too, drums. violin and guitar, so I kept playing. I got into band and choir in school, high school, and the band director liked me, got me in a jazz band, and that led to
With electric bass?
yeah, electric bass. And then he told me about this school called Berkeley College of Music.
Yep, I know it well.
I didn't. And I didn't know anything about that. And he said, you got to check this out. So I checked that out. I applied, I auditioned. They gave me a scholarship. And I went out there, and I did that for 3.5 years.
Who were your teachers there?
My teachers, my very first private lesson teacher I ever had was Matthew Garrison, right?
I know Matt. You know the story of his father, right?
I do. Which and he's such an incredible musician, which is so insane for me right out of the gate. Just this is literally my first private. Never took lessons before I got to Berkeley. Is Matthew Garrison. So he's 5 strings and a high C and just incredible knowledge.
I've interviewed Matt. I know him, and he's got a connection with Jack DeJohnette. It was his godfather or something.
Right. Yeah. Spent a lot of time with him, from what I understand, and he kind of raised him and pushed him in the direction that he's in now. So that was intense. Oscar Stagnaro. Yeah.
I interviewed him. He's a hoot.
He's great. He was another, and really those two guys kind of shaped my kind of approach and my kind of really ignited that fire to kind of keep working and pushing the instrument.
Berkeley must have opened up all kinds of doors for you, and connections and networking and gigs and things like that. What happened right after Berkeley? What did you do as soon as you left?
Well, towards the tail end, John Mayer came through, and he was there, and we got to hang out with him and do some stuff. And right after that, I just traveled and played around and tried to figure out what I wanted to do next as kind of an adult, and kind of an oxymoron, an adult music. It's kind of but I got to play with a '90s big country music star from the '90s. A lot of hits back there. He's still out there.
Are you allowed to say his name?
Yeah, his name's he's a bass player too. His name's Colin Ray. I'm not super familiar with country music, but especially in the '90s, I wasn't familiar with anything, let alone country music. But he had a lot of hits, and I got to play with him, and that actually led to playing with Mary Wilson from the Supremes. Yeah,
she wrote. I guess it was an autobiography that I read. Maybe it was when I was playing Dreamgirls, as a matter of fact, and somebody had a copy, and I just read it. And the one thing that stands out in my mind, she said they were down south somewhere, and they were in a hotel, and the hotel had some kind of service where people could put their shoes outside their hotel room, and the hotel would take them and polish their shoes and put them back. And she said, well, at some point, somebody took the shoes after they had been polished and put back and just rearranged them and put them all in front of different people's doors. And she said, we never found out exactly who it was, but James Jamerson was a prime suspect. That's what she printed in her book, and that's one of the things that stands out in my mind about her book.
Yeah, bass players are pranksters for sure. I know I am, and the other bass players I know. Don't seem to have much better to do than prank people and mess with people. So yeah, I could see that.
Well, you've played with you mentioned a couple people, but I know you worked up a solo act, and I've seen some YouTube videos that are very impressive. And how did you come to do that? Because you're playing and you're singing, and you really are very expressive. Everything from your own stuff, which was "Remember My Name," to Stevie Wonder, "Isn't She Lovely," and a bunch of other stuff. How did that all come together? Was that at Berkeley, or was that afterwards, or was it just a gradual thing that's been building all along, or what?
Yeah, so the technique, I think everything that I can do as far as technique now, I've probably always been able to do. 2 or 3 years in to practicing, I kind of figured all that out. And then putting it together, that was a lot of me in my bedroom and not having any friends in high school and stuff, and just practicing and playing and not going out. And then Berkeley gave me kind of more musicality, more harmony and theory to kind of apply the technique and kind of how to move things around and arranging. And yeah, here we are.
Here we are. One thing I wanted to ask you about is your Conklin bass that you're holding there. Bill Conklin is a great guy. He makes some incredible instruments. I know Bill Dickens is a big Conklin artist. Tell me how you came to choose Conklin and what you like about that brand and that bass.
Right. So I first became aware of Conklin, like a lot of people did, through seeing Bill Dickens on that old. I had the VHS tape. I don't know what that is of the day the bass players took over the world, and they had that thing.
Dave Pomeroy.
Yeah. He was at the bass jam last night, and it was him, O'Teal, and Steve Bailey and Victor Wooten, and Bill had that crazy 7-string bass and was playing on that crazy technique, and I said, what is going on here? And it's a Conklin. It's a beautiful instrument, sound incredible. And I looked more into it, and he is in the same town that like right down the street from me. So I said, that's really cool. So I think when it comes time to get a real instrument, I think that'll be the one for me. And we kind of started talking to each other at the same time, kind of similar ideas about what we wanted to do. I didn't want to play a 7-string bass because it's too many strings for me. And
Bill Dickens, some might argue he plays too many notes. Sorry, Bill. First time I ever saw Bill was in 1984.
yeah.
There was a big outdoor jazz festival, and there was some local people, and then there was Herbie Mann and Gado Barbieri, and he was playing with Ramsey Lewis.
Right.
And he absolutely scared me to death way back in 1984. It was like, man, who is this guy? So, not that you play too many notes, Bill, but you play a lot of notes very fast.
I play a lot of notes real fast too, so the strings don't necessarily. I wouldn't say there's a connection there, but
Well, think of how many more you can play if you had a 7-string bass.
I think my head would explode. I don't think I have that much. I've only got so many notes I think I can figure out, and this is probably the limit of it. But I used to play a 6 all through college, but I started traveling. I got tired of people asking me if it was a guitar and where the strings came from, what is going on. I said, let's play 4, and then people won't talk to me.
But the Conklin, the workmanship, the shape,
it's incredible. It's a great instrument. He does amazing work, and this is really this bass that I'm holding is just kind of it's just a standard, well-made 4-string bass. It's very old school. There's not a lot of bells and whistles. One of the things that always intimidated me about the Conklin instruments is the guys I would see playing them, there was always so many knobs and so many switches and like pickup things and like extra strings and all these woods and stuff. And the first time, probably, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I was looking into Conklin. I said, I think I'll try to get a Conklin, but there were so many options of woods, and I don't know anything about that. I don't really care either. I said, just give me a bass that sounds good and plays well, and that's what he came up with. And he's got this whole classics line that's just really just great, old school, well functioning basses.
Tell me about the rest of your gear. What kind of strings do you play?
Diodarios, nickels. They're kind of a lighter gauge usually, so I can get around a little bit.
How light? Because I know you do a lot of popping.
Yeah.
Lighter than 45?
I think they're 40s. These are 40s on there.
So you probably have to change them pretty often.
I change them if I'm, once or twice a week, usually. Just in my hands.
More often than most of us, I think.
My hands they're real gross. I sweat a lot, and they get that oil or whatever. So it's just real nasty. But
What about amps or effects or things like that?
Not really. Which is one of the beauties of doing this is I'll usually walk into a lot of places with just a Sans amp. Or just some kind of DI, if that, and just go for it. But
Tech 21.
Yeah, that's about it, or whatever they want to use. I'm not super picky, but Sans amp is great. And then I'm actually using the Aguilar rig tonight here at Rudy's Jazz Room, which last time I played through one was in New York. I did a thing in New York City this whole show, and it was great. I really loved it, and just by chance, they said they're going to have one tonight, so it'll be fun.
You won't go wrong with that.
No, I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be wonderful.
Tell me about the future. You're young, yet you... I've never gotten a laugh from that question before. Let me phrase that a little differently. You're young, yet you've already done a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
What else would you like to do in the future that you haven't already accomplished?
I know. Probably see where else I can go with this, I think maybe getting more musicians into it, maybe more of a band kind of setup. I'm working on a new album I should have fleshed out towards the end of this year.
Excuse me. The first album is just called Shaun Munday.
Shaun Munday, yeah.
Shaun.
Yeah.
Monday is spelled Munday.
Yeah.
And I bet nobody ever misspells your last name.
I have to spell it everywhere I go because you'll see it every. So what I had to do was I bought every possible spelling for domain names. So if you type in SEANMONDY or something silly, it'll go to me because it just happens. So, but yeah. So I figured that's enough for a title. It's weird enough. So Shaun Munday is the first album. I don't know what I'm gonna call the second one.
How far along are you with the second album?
I got most of the songs lined up, so most of it's just arranging and trying to figure out what I want to do and how much of a bass album I want.
Is it going to be just you, or are there going to be other players?
The first album was just me. It's all, but I tried to make it sound like a band through overdubbing and effects and stuff. It sounds like everybody's there, but it's just a bass doing everything. This one I'll probably have the real instruments, drums and guitars and stuff. And just see what happens.
All right. Well, keep us posted. Did I ask you when do you anticipate having that released? When will we all be able to listen to it?
I don't know, but I'll let you know.
Please do. Last question, Shaun. Yes. If you can imagine, what would you be if you weren't a bass player? Something outside of music.
I tell you, I was studying sports medicine. That's what I was into before I kept getting pushed into music more and more. And I'd probably end up doing that.
You got pushed into music. I have a feeling you went somewhat willingly.
Well, just kind of in the cosmic sense, just opportunities kept coming up, and I kept taking them. So it's worked out pretty well.
Well, good or bad, right or wrong, there will always be athletes getting hurt. So there's a career there for you. Hey, it's true. Yeah. Well, Shaun, it's great getting familiar with you and getting to know you, getting to know your music. And it's very exciting. You should check out. He's got lots of YouTube videos. Shaun, Shaun, Munday, Munday. And keep us posted on the new record and anything else you have coming up, and we'll share it with all these nice people here. Yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you, John.
Much luck. Continued success to you always. On location at Rudy's Jazz Room in Nashville, Tennessee with Shaun Munday. I'm John Liebman. You're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com.